Amen. Thank you, guys. You've heard the word Albion thrown around since you got here. In case you don't know, a good portion of the church who loves the outdoors is at a place called Albion, worshiping outdoors. Little did they know, we wanted so much to be with them that we turned the heat off. Simpatico. Just kidding. I made this T-shirt for this, but now I'm like, why didn't I do the hoodie? Get the upgrade. Also, did you guys learn the principle when you were young that if you make fun of yourself before other people do it, it's better? I have a lot of dirt on my pants. I did mean to dress casual. I did not mean to dress dirty. I was helping an old lady change her tire. Just kidding. I wish that was the case, but my husband said embellishment is okay. It's not a lie. I just ran into the car on the way out and got a big thing of dust. So anyway, my friends, my name is Amie Regester. I'm the digital evangelist here. That means I do Bible studies and small groups online. If you want to know more about Christianity, if you want to know more about the church, if you're looking to follow Jesus and online is the way you'd like to do it, please see me after the service. I'd love to connect with you or your nephew or your daughter or anybody that you know is interested in Bible studies. That's my job here at Sunnyvale. Before we get started, I want to play a little bit of a game to get you guys engaged and ready for this sermon that I'm bringing to you. So, for those of you who like music or music trivia, this is just going to test you to see if you know the next words in these first lines of love songs through the decades, okay? So I'm going to sing a few words, and you're either going to say or sing them back if you know them. And bonus for you, if you know the group that made them popular. Are you ready to play? All right, this is from the 50s. Earth angel, will you be mine? All right, anybody know the group? Penguins. Okay, 60s. Oh, I wonder, but-you. Oh, yeah, you guys are good. That's the monotones, which many of you are as well. 70s, why do birds suddenly appear? Okay, you guys are showing me what decade you were born and grew up in. Okay. This is for maybe, I'm in my early 40s, so this is for us and a little bit older mostly. Lying in my bed, I hear the clock tick. Ooh, good job. 90s, yes, Cyndi Lauper. I could stay awake. I love it. Yeah. All right. I put myself out there, so you guys can put yourself out there. You're not even being filmed. Okay, this one's a little bit harder, so think 2000s pop. You're on the phone with your girlfriend, she's upset. Yes, I got at least one person who knows that. It's Taylor Swift. And then here's the last one, and I really can't sing it because I don't know the pacing of it, but when your legs don't work like they used to before. If I tell you it's Ed Sheeran, will that help? You know the chorus. And I can't sweep you off your feet. That's beautiful, sad and beautiful. All right, thank you for playing. So that's the uncomfortable lead into the sermon today. And if you can't tell, we're talking about love. 1 Corinthians 13. And we know a lot of love songs. They're so prevalent in our society. We think we know a lot about love. We have sociologists and psychologists who are so willing to tell you the breakdown of, the body chemistry and what's going on when we love or fall in love. But for all we know, it's still a huge mystery. And I want to give honor to the mystery of love today. So that's our topic this morning. You can turn in your Bibles, digital or your Pew Bible or whatever you have. But I know a lot of you have heard this chapter, 1 Corinthians 13. If you've been to more than one wedding, you've probably heard it recited. And if I asked for a show of hands on who had it at their own wedding, there might be a few among us. So pretty popular. And whenever we come to a popular place in the Bible, it's our tendency to speed through it or run over it. And today I just want to slow down and take a few minutes to understand this beautiful concept according to the Bible. So I'm going to take you on a journey today, next slide, through these 4 questions. What does it mean to be a disciple of Jesus? What does Jesus expect from his disciples concerning love? How does Jesus define love? And what would life look like if you and I were able to live out the principles of this 1 Corinthians 13 that we're going to be reading about today? All right, let's go on a journey. I was going to make some cheesy pun about joining me with open arms, faithfully with the journey, but I figured just quit while you're ahead, Regester. All right, first question is, what does it mean to be a disciple of Jesus? Are you a disciple of Jesus? Yes, we know that it has something to do with following Jesus and his ways, right? That part's pretty apparent. Many of you, I would assume, since you're here on a very cold Saturday morning, consider yourself a disciple of Jesus. And maybe you don't. Maybe you're just putting a big toe in today and wondering about what all this Christianity stuff is, and that's fine too. But for those who consider ourselves disciples, what does that mean? Well, it is following after Jesus, but in biblical times, in the history of discipleship, it was much more holistic and lifelong than we even realize today. Discipleship to us might be even picking and choosing the things that we like. And that's not what the followers of Jesus in his day would have thought of it. It was a wholehearted becoming like the teacher. And we even have Jesus' words in Luke 6:40, where he says, "The student is not above the teacher, but everyone who is fully trained will be like their teacher." So in Jesus' mind, becoming a disciple was reproducing himself in every way in those who are following after him. Obviously not to the extent where you're not yourself anymore, but it is forming your worldview and the way that you interact with the world. No picking and choosing. You are becoming just like your teacher. And so you would choose wisely when becoming a disciple. Much more than just the transfer of information, it referred to imitating the teacher's life, inculcating his values, and reproducing his teachings. So this is a relationship with the master teacher where you're putting aside potentially your own thoughts to bring in the teacher's thoughts. And that's important because when we talk about this next section, the question is, what did Jesus expect of his disciples concerning love? We have to decide whether we're in that category or where we're moving ourselves from that category and this doesn't apply to us, because I'm telling you, my friends, this is hard. This stuff is so hard that I had tears over this week realizing how unworthy I am to preach this message. And tears with my husband, how unworthy I am even to be a mother. But we'll talk about that. Sometimes coming in line with truth does that to us. It's okay. It's actually a beautiful place to be. So what did Jesus expect from his disciples concerning love? Well, when Jesus was once challenged by a Pharisee who was an expert in the law and asked him, "What is the greatest commandment, teacher?" Do you remember what he said, how he answered? Yeah. He said, the first is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. He says, on these 2 great truths hang all the laws and the prophets. So he's not negating the 10 commandments by any means. I have to tell Adventists that because they'll come and tell me later. He wasn't negating. Yes, true. But he's saying, here is the essence of life. The greatest commandments are love. Love God, and here's the things that lead and show that. And love your neighbor, and here are the things that lead and show that. That's the whole essence of the 10 commandments. And when we keep them, we are keeping love. So that was Jesus' idea. Baseline for those who are following him: love God and love others. That's ground zero for being a Christian. And it was so important that not only was that his foundational message at that time, but it was also his last message. You guys know that it's recorded in the Gospel of John, some of his last words before he sacrificed himself. John 13, 34 and 35, Jesus is talking to his disciples who are following him in every way, trying to glean info from their master. He says, "A new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another as I have loved you." And then going on to 35, we've talked about this in a previous sermon of mine. Jesus' expectations were, by this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. Do you think love was an important part of being a disciple of Jesus? It seems so. All right, next part is, how do Christians then, how do we define love? Well, since we are following Jesus, we're taking him at his word, we're trying to model our lives after his, we should look at his definition of love. Now, this is a little bit secondhand, so stay with me. But Paul, we have multiple books of his and multiple writings. We can compare on what he knew about Jesus and his words on love. So here are three things that I've pulled out of Paul's writings, Galatians, Ephesians, and Romans, that can give us a clue onto how Jesus would have defined love. So let's read through these together. This is just an abbreviated version. Galatians 2:20 says, "I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me," and what? Gave himself for me. Loved and gave. Ephesians 5:1, that's 5:1 and 2. Just as Christ loved us and what? Gave himself up for us. And Romans 5:8, "But God demonstrated his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." So all of these are about love. Christ's love, and then the last one, God's love, and having to do with Christ's giving. So if you were to just take this is just a snapshot of the Bible study. If you're going to take this and decide what you thought was love according to the Bible, what would you say? There's something about giving of yourselves, right? And is that an emotion or is that an action? Yeah, I mean, I hope the emotions are connected, but you can tell that this sacrifice is an action toward us, right? So love is an other-centered action according to Jesus, according to the Bible. And as followers of Jesus, we want to be epic disciples, and we want to start living that way as well. As C.S. Lewis put this concept, love is not an affectionate feeling, but a steady wish for the loved person's ultimate good as far as it can be obtained. And I would say it's an active wish, because if the feeling fades, you can still take action. And I saw one of my old Bible teachers had a post this week for Valentine's Day. He said, if you find yourself in a situation where you've fallen out of love with a spouse or child or a sibling or whatever, do the things that you would do if you did love them. Act as if you did, and you'll find the feelings returning. I just thought it was wise advice, at least something to try. So, in our last section today, the last question, I want to take a deep dive, as I said, into 1 Corinthians 13, and we're going to ask ourselves, what would it look like if we were able to live by what Paul says is the definition of love here in 1 Corinthians? And I think you'll find it beautiful, and I think you'll find it challenging, because I did. So I'm going to read this out of the NIV. Your version will differ slightly. You might have old-fashioned words or newfangled words, but we'll try to sum up the ideas as we go through this together. You could probably recite it. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. Beautiful, right? I was watching one of my favorite theologians online, or a sermon that actually inspired this, and he said Paul had just the right amount of coffee that morning when he was writing this. It's just so beautiful. It's one of the most beautifully poetic bits in the New Testament. And just to give you guys some background, Paul is not writing this for a wedding ceremony coming up. Would you believe that? That's right. He is writing this to a series of house churches that he set up. So he knows the guys. He's writing this to these house churches that are totally screwed up. And you read more of the letter and you figure out what's going on there. And of course, it's nothing that would be going on in Sunnyvale or any of our churches. But there's bickering, infighting. People are taking communion wrong, flippantly. Somebody's sleeping with their stepmother. This is a barn-burning novel if you were to have it on the shelves today. It's embarrassing, and he's embarrassed. And as way of mentoring, maybe rebuking, I don't know, is on his mind, but on way of setting before them this banner of how he dreams that it would be when we're following after Jesus. He writes these beautiful notes, and he probably has people in his own mind that he's writing them for, because it's hard to write to a congregation and not have people and their circumstances come to mind. But in all of this mess and this chaos, he's about to breathe in beauty and life. And so I'm hoping with you to figure out what some of these poetic words mean and how we can take action on them. So let's start at the beginning. Verse 4, love is patient. What does that mean? Love is patient. Well, we know what impatience is, what it looks like, what it feels like. Have you ever really wanted to talk to someone and they just didn't have time for you? Stop by, coworkers thing, and they're checking their watch, and they just got no time for you. So it's time related, right? So if love is patient, then love has time to hear you out, to welcome you in, and it's giving of that time. It's the ability to put down your own timeline and take up someone else's. Love is kind. In Greek, the word kind is kind of like a pleasantness or a sweetening. And what does that feel like? Have you ever stepped into the presence of somebody who was just a hospitable person? Their bubble was open to you, and you knew that you were welcome. Every time you go to talk to them, you feel like they do have time, and that it's a joy for them to see you. Those are my favorite people, and they do it for everyone. It's not just me. But I think so fondly of those people in my life. When people enter a kind person's personal space, they feel welcome. They're not hustled off. There seems to be a sort of sense to sit and stay a spell. Even if it's just 30 seconds, it will restore you. That's what patience and kindness looks like. Love doesn't envy or isn't jealous, depending on your version. What's that about? Love experiences joy at another person's gain. To be jealous is to want something that someone else has for yourself, or to be upset that someone else seems to be getting ahead or getting blessed when you're not. And that's not love. Love is being excited for the good that happens in the lives of anyone else. You have your cheerleaders in your group. Do you know people who are never going to be jealous? You can call and share anything with them, and they're going to be like, yeah, right on. I'm so proud of you. I've got a few of those. That's what love is. The opposite is jealousy. And you know people like that too, who are just bummed that anything good that happened to you didn't happen to them. Well, I could do it too if I just, and they make excuses or just sort of a downer. That one connects to the next three a little bit. So it says, it does not boast, or some say it's not puffed up. So someone who genuinely thinks they're more important than everyone else, their stories are better, they've done cooler things, they're the sort of the one-uppers. So does not boast and is not puffed up, is not proud, does not want to draw attention to itself or the things that that person has accomplished, and does not dishonor others. Something happens when we live life thinking that our voices, our projects, our stories are cooler and more interesting than everyone else's. We don't just elevate ourselves. For some reason, humanity has this need to put a distance between you and the next guy. And you find yourself, as you lift yourself up, dishonoring someone else's story, or it's not cool, or oh, I could do that. And that's absolutely not love. Something sad happens when we elevate ourselves on a pedestal. We end up feeling the need to knock someone else down. Love is not self-seeking. It does not seek its own, is how my version puts it. Obviously, there are some things you need to do and be self-centered on, like things that support life. But aside from that, can we break out of our own little shells, our own little worlds? Paul is talking about someone here who perpetually puts themselves and their needs above other people's. These people who are constantly right, always best at everything, they're extremely difficult to work with. They're also easily angered because since their agenda is the primary one, you need to move to their agenda. And if you don't, they won't forget. Perhaps they'll even be plotting to even the score. By the way, after being married about 5 minutes, I noticed I had a propensity of keeping score. I don't even want to. It's just my mind. I don't mean to add up things, but I do know how many times I did dishes versus he did dishes. I just know. He is much more graceful in that, I will tell you. My husband does not keep score, and he lives this out in that regard. I got him beat on other stuff, though. Did you get that as a joke? Keeping score? Yeah? Okay. All right. And then, love does not delight in wrongdoing, but celebrates the truth. Okay. Finally, this one does not step on any toes, right? Because none of us are excited about wrongdoing. Am I right? But not so fast, because what I've noticed is that I'm okay with wrongdoing sometimes if it's against the people that deserve it, right? It masquerades as justice. For example, the really rude customer getting their food spit in or dropped on the floor behind the scenes. Like, I shouldn't be excited about that, but there's a part of me that's like, that's what you get, Karen, or whatever her name was, you know? And, or you know, to make it even grodier, perhaps it's the womanizer who ends up coming down with something because their lover didn't disclose that she had a disease or something. And you think to yourself, yeah, you had it coming. But these things are wrongdoing no matter who they happen to. It does appeal to our sense of justice. But my friends, love doesn't do that. Love finds a way to even care about good for our enemies. And that's where this stuff gets really, really difficult. And what does it mean to celebrate the truth? Does not delight in wrongdoing, but celebrates the truth. What do those have to do together? Well, it's my understanding that in context here, this truth is us realizing that we need to work through these issues, that we do celebrate wrongdoing in some manner, or that we're cheering for people who look more like us instead of just cheering for the best candidate, or whatever it happens to be. that when we take the time to do an inventory about ourselves and how much love we have or don't have, we can celebrate the truth that only Jesus can live like this. He says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. He is the only one who can live like this. And when we celebrate the truth of who we are, we can look at our flaws and be honest about them. That's a baseline to learning to love. My husband and I were talking about the 12 steps of the AA program this week. Some of you might have grown up in that program, accompanied someone, might have gone through it yourselves. It's beautiful and spiritual. Numbers 4 and 5 say this. This is, progressing through the steps. I have made a searching and fearless moral inventory of myself. Number 5, I have admitted to God, to myself, and to another human being the exact nature of my wrongs. You see how that's truth-finding and how that's something to be celebrated, because you can't move forward and build relationships or repair broken ones until we have found truth about ourselves and our inability to love like Jesus. And here's the tie back. If you read the New Testament about how Jesus lived and walked the earth and ministered, you will see that he lived out all of these principles. And as I come into contact with them myself, as I said, there's been moments of tears in this study, realizing that I've come down to work and write down these words I'm telling you right now, but 5 seconds ago, I just did or said something really unloving. Not even to my husband, who deserves it. That's a joke. Sorry, Brian. But to my baby daughter, who is pure and innocent. I've thought about her. Been mad at her. Been selfish with my time. I screw these 16 facets up before lunch, before breakfast, maybe even before waking up. And that's difficult as somebody who professes to be a follower of Jesus. Have you felt that? It shouldn't lead to despair. But what it sometimes does is lead to depression and despair when you see where you lack. Or on the other side, it makes you deny that those things are important or that we should be seeking them. I want to say today, church, stay on that path. Look at Jesus. Follow Jesus. Continue to ask for his help and blessing to live like this. Finally, the last part, love always believes, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. This is a sweet summation, pretty easy to understand. But love continues in all situations. It provides stability. If you can keep going, even when there's the hills and valleys, if you can keep going, then that love, other-centered action provides a stable platform for all of us to grow and change into the image of Jesus. So, this is not Paul's guilt trip, by the way, to stay in any kind of situation where you're not safe. I just wanted to put that out there. I know it's a reality. But keeping on the loving relationship, even if it's from a distance, continuing to wish for the other person's success, joy, and betterment is where Christians can and should find themselves. So here's a quick summary. Love is genuinely able to celebrate the good that happens to others. Love talks about the good things that it sees in others as opposed to always lifting up self. It thinks that other people are more important and can easily accommodate them, genuinely seeks what's best for them. It takes a lot to make love angry, and when it does, love is quick to forgive. Love laments the tragedy of our human condition, but celebrates the truth and being able to clearly see our flaws and move towards making it right. Love is always supportive, always trusting, always hoping for the best for others. Love never fails. Like I said, who can live like this? None but Jesus. So, Jesus and his victory means that here on earth, we have had a human who could live up to this. And yes, I know he was God and human, but he put away his right to godliness so that he could be among us and live as we did. And this means that he understands it, the struggle, and he wants to give us power to live the same way. So let this not be another sermon full of great ideas with no action. I want you to take one moment, close your eyes, and let the Holy Spirit put the face of somebody to your mind that you want to love better. And we're going to go through this in closing. Just take 1 minute. I'm going to pray with you as you do this. God, we realize that to be disciples is to find that love is kind of the be-all and end-all, ground zero for our walk. And we know that there are times that this morning, 5 minutes ago, that we haven't lived up to this. And so, God, right now, put the face or name of somebody in our mind that you would like to have us reach out to and repair and love better. Amen. All right, with that face in mind, who have you lost patience with? Who have you been unkind to? Whose good fortune were you unable to celebrate? Who did you talk too much about yourself and your projects with lately when you were hanging out with them? Who do you think you're way better than? And you, because of that deep belief, maybe you don't even think about it, you treat them in a way that dishonors the fact that they are also children of God. Who have you ignored their priorities? Who have you lost your temper with when they didn't think that your priorities were more important? Who did you back out on this week, not show up for? And who have you stopped believing in, stopped hoping for? Who were you not around for when they needed you? Who did you fail? It's pretty sombering to put it that way, isn't it? And the fact that it's often those who are closest to us and who sacrifice the most for us makes it even more difficult for me to talk about, and maybe for us to stomach. But church, don't fall on the side of thinking that it's not important to pursue, and don't fall on the side of thinking that we can't get there, because Jesus has already claimed that victory for us. And it might not be overnight, but we will become more loving people as we dwell on these words and this person. I'll leave it there. I'll be back to close this with a prayer in just a moment. Thank you.